The collection encapsulates the history of government reform in America. The people who organized the Institute of Public Administration and its forerunner, which was called the Bureau of Municipal Research, organized it as a way of getting back against Tammany corruption and bossism in New York. They try to come up with a way of making government more efficient, effective, transparent. The Bureau of Municipal Research started in the early 1900s. About 1916, it attracted a young student of government and administration named Luther Gulick. He was very interested in how government worked, how it really worked, and how to make it better, how to make it more responsive to people. He attended the first class of the training school. Their idea was government should be professionalized. It should not be a place where, relatives of the mayor get hired, a place for nepotism. It should be a place where professionals, people who studied government, can operate. Gulick quickly applied this knowledge to running a government from behind the scenes. He was not a politician. He never ran for anything, but he made government work. His big issue was, how do you translate policy into action? This is the core of Gulick's contribution. Once a policy was adopted, how do you translate that into effective action? That was his big concern, which is really important and interesting, because politicians can come up with bills and laws all the time, but how do you translate it into fact and action? He started off actually working for Woodrow Wilson in World War I. He was on the statistics side, telling the White House of President Wilson how the war was going. He went to Washington when Roosevelt became president, and he became a key advisor to Roosevelt. It was Gulick's idea to take the president away from the center of the organizational chart, where all agencies reported directly to the president, and create a council of advisors who would really deal with all the important issues that they could take off the shoulders of the president. That was the creation of Gulick and his Committee on Administrative Management. The executive, the president, the three branches, and coming from the president, there are all these other agencies: National Emergency Council, Information Service, the military departments, Treasury, etc., and they all report through a chain of command up to the president. He was instrumental during the war in figuring out what are the mechanics of converting a plant that produced civilian material immediately to military goods, because there was no time to waste. Exactly how do you do? Who reports to whom? After World War II, he was involved in manpower planning. What are we going to do with all these thousands of troops coming home? How are we going to find employment for them? He was instrumental in the GI Bill, getting them education. After that, he went to work for the City of New York. He became the first public administrator of the City of New York. He worked for Robert Wagner. They reorganized New York City the way he reorganized the federal government. New York has the shape it has today because of the innovations that Gulick and his associates put in place in the 1950s. We got the collection. We heard about it some years ago. It was being stored in a Queens warehouse. Carnegie Corporation of New York gave us a very generous grant to retrieve 700 boxes of materials thrown together, disorganized, in terrible repair. We went through box by box. We preserved photographs. We reorganized it into smaller boxes, acid-free by archival standards, to preserve it, keep them from deteriorating. So we now have the collection organized. We're methodically digitizing it so it can be searched online. We found original posters of World War II for war bonds. We found food records of how we were feeding 300 million people in Europe. Gulick was central in that. We're very happy to have this collection and other important collections here, because we have a very close relationship to the School of Public and International Affairs. Our materials are available to their students. We're in a very good place for that. Baruch has a very renowned School of Public and International Affairs, so it's a good place for the archives. The value of this collection, to me, is that it reinforces the power of government. Why do we even have government? There are people today who say we should drown government in a bathtub, famous quote, that government is dysfunctional, it's no good, get government out of the way. This is a throwback to time when government was vital to the survival of this country. What government can do, what it should do, what people can't do for themselves. Everything from education, school organization, to pensions, to all the things that government has to do for people. It's a time when people had faith in government, and government returned that faith by performing for people. But how government can operate, how it should operate, how smart people can make government operate better. And that's what Gulick was dedicated to.